This is Talk Business and Politics with Roby Brock.
And welcome to the program. I'm Roby Brock. We are glad to have you with us. It's been a grueling month for the state's continuing battle with COVID-19. Consider these statistics just from July. The state saw a 63% rise in deaths, a 15% increase in active cases, a 100% rise in cumulative cases, an 84% rise in hospitalizations, and a 39% rise in ventilator usage. These numbers are part of the reasons the Arkansas Education Association wants concerns fully addressed before schools reopen. I'm now joined by State Senator Linda Chesterfield, Democrat from Little Rock. She sits on the Senate Education Committee. She's a former Little Rock School Board president and a two-time president of the Arkansas Education Association. Always good to be with you, Senator. Thanks for being with us today.
It's a pleasure to be with you, Roby.
Well, let's talk about what's going on with the legislature. You've been front and center with a lot of the legislative committee action. Give me your assessment with how we're dealing with the pandemic here in Arkansas.
Well, I think we're dealing with it in fits and starts. I think the decision to open up quickly is a mistake, was a mistake. I think the governor is moving in the right direction now by issuing a statewide mask wearing mandate. But I worry in that we're so busily trying to open up an economy that is not going to work unless we get the virus under control. And I think that's what so many people are failing to understand, that if you can't get the virus under control, you can't open up the economy. And now I'm especially concerned because people are losing money now. The $600 they want to take away, but that's what was propping up the economy. And nobody's seeing that relationship. And so I'm a little worried. I'm a person of faith, and I believe that we will work through this, but it has taken us a long time to get where we are right now.
I'd like your take on schools potentially reopening. You're an educator, been very active with the Arkansas Education Association. I'm just going to predict that you don't think it's a good idea to reopen schools.
I think you're right, Roby. I don't think it's a good idea to open up schools right now. As a matter of fact, I was meeting with the superintendents and their representatives the other day, and with representatives from the broadband community to talk about how we could better serve the needs of the kids who are underserved as far as providing a virtual education. But I have been concerned from the beginning when they say that kids under 10 will not be impacted. If you've ever worked with children, then you know that if you think pink eye is going to come to school, it's going to come be a little kid. If you're going to have whooping cough, it's going to come be a little kid. So I was never impressed with the idea that suddenly COVID was going to cut off at 10 years old, or the lack of COVID activity would cut off at 10 years of age. I don't believe that. I believe that we have got to be more careful. I know that there are a lot of people who are hurting, and I am really concerned about our support professionals who depend upon the schools for their livelihood. But I don't want them to go to school and die. But I want them to come up with a plan that will allow our children to learn, and to learn equitably, and I'm afraid that did not happen when we closed down in March because too many didn't have access. I want our support professionals, our bus drivers, our custodians, our cafeteria workers to be able to earn a living. And they weren't eligible for unemployment, should that have been cut off. According to federal law, unless they are furloughed or fired, they're not eligible for unemployment during the summertime because of the only bill that Bill Alexander, our former congressman, got passed that says school employees cannot get unemployment in the summertime if they know they're going to have a job in the winter. So we're having people who are dependent upon this but have no place to go right now and are stuck not being able to get unemployment while we work through what we're going to do with the public schools. So I'm very, very much concerned about the totality of the issue.
Is this requiring federal action in your estimation, or is this something that you can control at the state level, obviously with the governor's assistance?
Well, I believe as far as the support professionals, it's federal law, and nobody's changed that. But this requires a federal response. This business of each state doing it his or her way, I thought that went away with the Confederation of States that I taught about, and the reason that we have a constitution is so that we will have something that promotes the general welfare. And we're looking at the general welfare going down the drain because we do not have somebody promoting the general welfare and providing for the common defense. And we need a defense against pandemic, just like we do, this pandemic, just like we do if we were at war with an enemy. And so I am very, very much concerned that we have not engaged the nation in talking about what we do to rebuild our economy. Now that we've had a 33% reduction in productivity in this country, it doesn't make sense, Robbie.
So point blank, do you think there should be in-person classes this fall? Is there a way to do that safely?
The only way I see it is perhaps a hybrid model where some kids, so that you can have the proper social distancing, could come, but that's going to be at a lot of expense to the public schools. To bring, say, the A and B kids in on Tuesday and Thursday and the C and D on Monday and Wednesday, and then on Friday or between then you have this deep cleansing of the school so that they can come back to work. But it's going to take a lot of planning, it's going to take a lot of money, because you have to socially distance on the buses. Do we have adequate buses in these school districts that will allow them to have 2 or 3 routes where they had one before? But I cannot imagine 60 kids on a school bus and they'll be safe. I can't imagine the driver being safe. I don't know how they're going to reimagine the cafeteria, where we have all kinds of raucous activity, and having had to do lunch duty when I was teaching school, let me tell you, that's when they go nuts at lunch. And so we've got to rethink that thing a lot before we can have any kind of thought of brick and mortar.
All right, last question for you. You were both a student and a teacher of the civil rights movement in this country. We lost one of the great leaders of that movement this last weekend, Congressman John Lewis. What are your thoughts on his legacy?
John Lewis's legacy is one of greatness, but even more of humility, because for all of the accolades and all of the praise, he never lost his sense of humility. He never forgot that it was young people who were at the heart of all the change that this country has ever had. Being a young man himself at 14 and 15, seeing Emmett Till killed, he talked about the community. He always talked about it, and getting into good trouble, but also urging us never to be complacent. The last time I met him was when he was campaigning for Clark Tucker 2 years ago. He was here and we went with him to Second Baptist Church. We went with him to St. John Church. We went with him to Philander Smith College. And there he spoke to young people. He spoke to them about the necessity of voting and moving past just being in the streets, causing good trouble, but also moving into a life of service as he himself did. We've got to become a part of the group that sets the table, not just have a seat at the table. We've got to help put the table in order. This is what we need. We need the Voting Rights Act passed. We need to make sure that our children who are not born in this country still have a pathway to citizenship. We've got to make sure that we take care of those kids at the border. We've got to make sure that we treat our LGBTQ community equitably. We've got to make sure that Hispanics, no matter where they work, are treated properly. And that we never forget that African Americans in this country still are killed disproportionately in comparison to any other group. We must have justice in this country. And so the work lies before us to make sure that his legacy continues. He was such a great person, such a mild person, and such a giant in his own way.
State Senator Linda Chesterfield, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.